Hello again, Gooners. Hello. I'm saying hello twice because I know what happens with this. I say it once and it gets cut off. If I say it twice, well, at least one of them should work. It's like us trying to make attempts on goal. You know, we'll shoot about what minimum of twice to get the one goal. So yeah, that's the reason. That's the reason why I'm saying it twice. All right. Does that make sense? Later, be reading the Bible as some people like to call it. Sorry about that loud banging. That was me just dropping the official biography on my table. So what have I got for you today? I'm just looking here for some topics. I'm looking at the Bleacher Report, which is quite good. I suggest you subscribe to it. I don't tend to read all the stories, but I certainly look at the headlines. These are the headlines today. Arsene Wenger's most intriguing quotes. I haven't looked at them yet, but I can imagine there are a number of them. Sorry about scratching my eye, but yeah, not professional just yet. Throw some money at me, I'll be professional. Bergkamp to be honoured with a statue outside the stadium. That comes from the Telegraph. Does Dennis Bergkamp deserve his own statue? I'll leave that for you to decide. I'm not sure that he does. I'm not sure he doesn't either. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other, but he was a very good player. He's one of those players that I championed when he was getting abuse, and then when he stopped getting abuse, and I stopped championing him, pretty much in the way that I've done in the past with Thierry Henry. Even he was my favourite player for a very long time before he was anyone else's, and then he continued to be my favourite player until his final season. And at that point, I thought we need to let him go. Luckily, we did. And then when we brought him back, I was absolutely delighted. Thierry Henry is probably my favourite player of all time of Arsenal. Better than Bergkamp, although, as I said, I think Bergkamp's... Well, you can't argue Bergkamp's a legend. Does he deserve a statue? Not sure. Maybe. I'll tell you who doesn't deserve a statue is the guy that said this. The club has funds for big transfers. I think you can guess who that is. I'll just say this. He's got a double-barreled name. That comes from SkySports.com. Big funds for big transfers. All right, we're talking now. This really irritated me, this story, when I read it a couple of days ago. I think Arsene Wenger said, we have money now, but not in that accent. He said, we have money. And I can't even think of the word for now in French, but I'm thinking of every other language except French. But yeah, he said, we've got money to spend now. Oh, thanks for telling us in February. Why not say that in January when it would have actually meant something? So in January we only had a measly 7,000 at most to spend. We get Nacho, not nachos, just one Nacho. He's made a difference. I won't deny it, but a big enough difference, I'm not too sure. So there's another report on the Bleacher Report saying why we will finish above Spurs and Chelsea. Right now, it looks like we're going to finish. I say that very optimistically. It looks like we're going to finish above Chelsea. Can we finish above Spurs? We will see this weekend. Then we're targeting a French defender, well, Kel Cypri, but there's been a lot of French players that have moved elsewhere, as in a bit further north to Newcastle, a lot further north. So the final article on Bleacher Report is, does this rivalry with Spurs really matter to us? Well, it does right at this very second, but will it matter if we edge above them yet again? We've had this St Totteringham's Day going on since feels like time immemorial. Let's hope it continues. Not sure it will, because Spurs are a strong side. I'm not going to deny that. I've had a multitude of arguments about Gareth Bale versus Theo Walcott. I maintain Theo Walcott is a better player, better prospect, but he's 23. He needs to start. Well, he is showing what he can do, but he's not doing it to the same level that Gareth Bale is. But I'm not going to rule him out. I'm not going to rule him out topping Gareth Bale. It was interesting that George Burley, I was reading in the newspaper today that George Burley, who managed both of them at Southampton, reckoned that Gareth Bale was a better player. So then why play Gareth Bale at left back? You don't usually play your best player at left back, do you? You normally play your best players further forward where they can cause damage, and that's where Theo's been playing all his life, apart from he's not been playing as striker. So by the same token, I've said, my dad's argued with me as you just can't imagine how many arguments I've had over this. But my dad said I was completely crazy to suggest that Theo is better than Gareth Bale. I said, okay, on current form, Gareth Bale is better, but Gareth Bale is playing in the position that suits him, whereas Theo is still most of the time playing on the right wing, which doesn't suit him. So if you're going to say which is the best winger of the two, sorry, I'm going to say Gareth Bale. If you're going to say who's a better player of the two, I'm going to say Theo Walcott, because I think he's quicker and I think he can offer more from a pace point of view. Not much more, but enough for me to vote for Theo. And plus, I just think there's more in his tank. I think we've seen the best of Gareth Bale. I don't think we've seen the best of Theo Walcott. It's just a hunch, if you like. Talking to Richard III, of course, they found the bones of the hunch. But my hunch, anyway, is Theo Walcott is going to be the better player. In 2 or 3 years' time, people will all recognise that. Up until now, they've not. Of course, I've fought tooth and nail for Theo all the way through his Arsenal career, saying what a good player this guy is. Finally, we're starting to see it, but he's been overshadowed by Gareth Bale. So this weekend is Theo's big chance to show he's the man of North London. He's the guy who deserves the mantle as the best player in North London. So let's hope Theo can prove me right. Obviously, it's against the odds. So, I mean, if we were looking, if I went down the bookies now and said who's going to be man of the match, well, I don't think many would be going for Theo. Maybe, yeah, the ones that don't go for Gareth Bale would choose Theo. But Gareth Bale, yeah, he can be quietened if he gets the right kind of marking. Is he going to get the right kind of marking against us? I doubt it, because we don't have any tactics. But having said that, I complain like crazy about Arsene Wenger, right? You know that. But I'm not suggesting that we need a change of manager. What I'm suggesting is that we need Arsene to listen to other people on the board. And why doesn't he listen to the board right now? Because there's nobody on the board that can actually make any sense. That's my feeling. David Dean certainly did. That's why Arsene listened to him. So why not bring David Dean back? It's not rocket science. Bring David Dean back and all our problems will go away. That's really what I truly believe. As well as that, though, we do need to start planning for the future. We need to start planning the succession. If this is going to be like a dynasty, surely Arsene wants to create a dynasty here. Why not start grooming a number one to come who can be number 2 for now? Is that Steve Bold? I don't know. If not, then bring somebody in like Michael Laudrup. He's impressed me in his first season in the Premier League. Doesn't mean I'm not 100% sure he's the answer to Arsenal's problems, and he won't be able to walk in and take over from Arsene Wenger and make things happen. I don't think so. I don't think he's that good, but I think he's good enough to be groomed as a successor to Arsene, and Arsene should still be in some sort of control. I know it didn't work at Manchester United back in the day when they had Matt Busby, but Arsenal are a completely different club to Manchester United. Apart from, both clubs have stability, and stability breeds success. So I would like Arsene to groom his successor. That's what I'm going to say on the Gooner podcast when it comes up. If I get asked the right questions, we shall see what questions I get asked. But on that flippant note, I think I should move into the history. I didn't say exactly what I was going to talk about, but actually it's Knighton Takes Over is the subtitle, and let's read on, shall we, from the official biography, The Compelling Story of an Amazing Club, written by Steve Stammers. Here we go, page 37. Knighton Takes Over. The first manager to work for Norris, that's Henry Norris, the very famous Henry Norris, at Highbury was Leslie Knighton. He had been successful with Manchester City and Huddersfield Town, but at Arsenal, Norris never really allowed him to manage in the truest meaning of the word. He was not allowed to sign players under 5 foot 8 inches tall, so I'll just about sneak in there. He had a transfer limit of £1,000 for any single player and was expected to assemble a team made up of mainly local players, and all this following the dismantling of the scouting system as a cost-cutting exercise. So I got rid of the scouting system. Feels like we've got rid of ours right now. That's why they all go to Newcastle instead of our club. And surely that's not true. Of course, we've done well getting Nacho Definitely, I agree with that. Anyway, let's continue. To be fair, Knighton did reasonably well in the circumstances. He managed a ninth place finish in 1921, and he took the team to the FA Cup quarter-finals the following season, where they were beaten by Preston. Perhaps the most curious incident of the Knighton era concerned some energy pills. Doesn't that remind me of something? What was that? What was that stuff that that our team used to get? Creatine. But anyway, energy pills, not quite the same thing. This probably sounds more like Red Bull. Anyway, that was the most curious incident of the Knighton era. The energy pills that he gave to the players ahead of an FA Cup game against West Ham in January 1925. A Harley Street doctor and an Arsenal fan gave Knighton the pills, claiming that they would do no harm and they'd improve the performance of the players. As bad luck would have it, the match was postponed because of fog. The players paced around the dressing room like a collection of lively lions, according to Knighton, many of them complaining about a raging thirst. They took the pills again the following Monday when the tie was rearranged, but the game was postponed again and the players noted the same after effects. On the Thursday night, at the third attempt, the game finally took place. Having taken the pills before kick-off, the players chased around almost supercharged, but there were no goals. Finally, the players rebelled, and for the replay at Highbury, they refused to take these pills anymore. This time, the game finished 2-2. There were there were more refusals for the second replay, which was at Stamford Bridge, and West Ham won 1-0. So the answer is take. No, it isn't. That's not the answer at all. What am I saying? Anyway, those refusals, according to this story, led to us losing it 1-0. Nothing more was ever heard about these pills. Though he towed the line most of the time, Leslie Knighton fell foul of Henry Norris, when he signed, what's his name? Midget Moffat. That's not the best of first names, is it? Midget Moffat from Workington in the summer of 1925. Moffat was only 5 feet tall, way below the minimum imposed by Norris, but Knighton had heard such glowing reports. It sounds like Cazorla to me, but Cazorla's not that small. Anyway, Knighton had heard such glowing reports about Midget Moffat, that he checked him out for himself, and he was impressed with what he saw. So impressed, in fact, that he offered him a deal on the spot. The arrangement was for Moffat to complete the deal the following day, but when Knighton arrived at Highbury next morning, there was no sign of the player. A few hours later, Knighton was stopped by the groundsman, who told him there was a chap in the dressing room who said he'd come to play for Arsenal, and it was Moffat, whose sense of direction on the pitch was better than off it. He had not noticed that Arsenal had dropped the Woolwich from their name and had gone to the old ground in southeast London. Wow. A local road sweeper informed him that the club had left that site before the war, and in fact gave him a lift to Highbury. And Moffat duly signed and was a huge success on the pre-season tour of Scandinavia. A few days later, Norris returned from his summer break in France. He saw the winger, had a look at his size, and within months he had been transferred to Luton Town and then on to Everton. He never mentioned it to Knighton, but the manager knew what had happened. It seems unlikely that the Moffat incident was a factor in Norris's next move, but he was clearly unhappy with the team's performances on the pitch. They finished 19th in 1923-1924 and 20th the following season. Norris was losing patience with that. Added to that, while the team was failing to make any significant impact, Arsenal's bitter enemies, Spurs, were emerging as the best supported team in the area. Well, they can't say that many seasons. I've had this argument so many times with Spurs fans. If you add up all the average gates over the years, the best supported club in North London is in fact Arsenal. Sorry, Spurs fans, but that's the truth, and I've gone through it statistically. And then anyone who wants to bring that one up, please, feel free to do so, because I will show you the proof. Arsenal are the best supported club, certainly, obviously, since we moved to the Emirates Stadium. Even prior to that, not every year. I'm not going to say every year Arsenal are better supported than Spurs, but certainly the average, there's quite a difference. But Spurs are the second best supported club in London. So just putting that one in there. I know that's not the most popular piece of information you've ever heard in your life, but there you go. As I'm saying that, I'm looking for my place. Where was I? So anyway, where were we? Yeah, okay. The bitter enemies from Spurs, they were best supported at that time. Oh, it doesn't sound good, does it? But it was true. Earlier in his career at Highbury, when things were going well, Knighton had been persuaded to stay at the club despite an offer to move north on the promise of a lucrative benefit game against Spurs and the use of a London apartment. Coincidentally, the first game of 1925-1926 was against Spurs, and in an even stranger coincidence, Knighton was sacked shortly before that game. This is what Knighton later claimed. He said, "I believe he sacked me to get round offering the benefit money." Norris just shrugged his shoulders, as you do, and he offered a one-off payment of £500. Knighton went on to have success with Chelsea and Birmingham. For his part, Norris had one more major contribution to make to Arsenal Football Club. Shortly before sacking Knighton, he had approached Herbert Chapman, then the very successful manager of Huddersfield Town, with a view to his taking over in the hot seat at Highbury. It was a brilliant move, and one that would have the exact effect that he wanted on the club. However, Norris had begun to make mistakes in his business dealings, mistakes which would cost him dearly. In 1927, he was the subject of an FA investigation into illegal payments and breaching the rules concerning club funds. These included the sale of the team bus, pocketing the proceeds of £125 and also using club funds for his own use. And the Daily Mail, it was, that reported these findings to the FA, and they suggested that Norris had also made illegal payments to Charlie Buchan to bring the striker back to Arsenal from Sunderland. So, Henry Norris had a litigious nature, and he sued the FA for leaking these details. But on this occasion, he lost this battle. In February 1929, the Lord Chief Justice found in favour of the authorities. Norris was banned from football for life. Although his link with Arsenal was severed in this controversial circumstances, Henry Norris's influence on the future through the appointment of Herbert Chapman can never be denied, and thanks to his admittedly underhand methods, Arsenal secured a place in the top flight that they were never to lose. So, of course, we're still there now, and long may that continue. Well, unfortunately, this particular podcast or vlog, or whatever else you might want to call it, is over. So that might not continue. When I say it's over for this particular time. I'll come back and spout some more nonsense in the not too distant future, no doubt. So until the next time, I have to say in football speak, away. Until the next time, up the Gunners.